The XDJ-AERO is Pioneer's all-in-one DJing console which is dedicated to mixing digital music. We've improved the sample launch feature so you can now create custom banks of 4 samples and quickly load them with the touch of a button. Your personalised samples are triggered using the Beat FX buttons instead of having to load one of the preset samples individually. With the new firmware update, you can create complex and original edits of your tracks. We'll show you how to download and upgrade the firmware and how you can use the new features on your Aero. You can download the firmware from pioneerdj.com/support. Hover your mouse over the XDJ-AERO. Click on Software Download, then Firmware, and then agree to the terms and conditions. Finally, click on the download link. Once the update is downloaded, copy the file onto the root of your USB device. Place it onto the Aero and whilst holding the roll and trans buttons on the right hand deck, power on the device. The Aero will start to update and power off once finished. The new sample launch mode is now active. If you press the sample launch button, all of the preset samples are loaded by default. Now you've updated your firmware, let's create some samples to use in the new sample launch mode. To create a sample bank, open rekordbox. Let's load an audio file that we want to sample from our collection. We've chosen this track as it has some clean drum hits at the beginning and a vocal breakdown. We also have our own white noise sample. Let's sample the hi-hat. Set a loop in point at the start of the hi-hat and an out point at the end. The in and out points of the loop indicate where you want the sample to start and finish. It's easiest to do this by stopping the track if it's playing and zooming into the waveform. You can then drag the waveform to the playhead and set the in and out points this way. Play the loop to make sure the sample sounds tight. Right-click on the loop in the player panel and select Export Loop as WAV and choose where you want to save it. These files are not saved as loops, they're only saved as one-shot audio files. We can follow the same steps to sample the vocal breakdown. We've already sampled a clap and we've already got a sample of some white noise. Once the samples are saved, they'll automatically appear in the rekordbox collection. Sample launch banks are stored within a playlist. To create one, click the playlist tab and then click the plus icon. We're going to name this Sample Bank 1. Let's drag our samples from our collection into our new playlist. Or we can highlight the tracks we want, right-click and click Add to Playlist. We can now export our sample launch playlist to our USB device. There's a few things to bear in mind when creating your own unique sample banks. The XDJ-AERO can only accept samples that are 2 seconds long. Any loop you set in rekordbox that is longer than this will be cut off after the 2-second mark. Also, customised sample banks can only be used with USB devices. When it comes to loading the samples in the Aero, it's really easy. Connect your USB device to your Aero, press and hold the sample launch button and the sample bank selection screen pops up. Push the encoder to load your sample bank. The samples can now be played using the Beat FX buttons. They are stored in the Aero's memory and can be played even when the USB stick has been removed. The samples are loaded across the buttons in the order you added them to the playlist on rekordbox. In our case, we have a hi-hat on 1, the vocal sample on 2, the white noise on 3 and the clap sound on 4. It's also worth remembering that the XDJ-AERO only allows for 4 samples per bank. If you've added more than 4 samples in an exported playlist, only the first 4 will be assigned to the Beat FX buttons. You can even use the Beat FX in conjunction with the sampler. Press Shift and choose the Beat FX you want to use. This activates the effect across all the samples and we can still change the beat timing and level depth parameters. Turn it off by pressing Shift and the effect again. All in all, Firmware 2.0 expands the functionality and usability of the XDJ-AERO. You have the freedom to bring your own mix to the party with the updated sample launch player. Download it at pioneerdj.com/support.